Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Меня зовут доктор Slate Burris. Я из города Веракрус в Мексике, где практикую акупунктуру уже 15 лет. Последние 10 лет я развиваю систему, которую назвал Неоклассическая акупунктура. Здесь сегодня я начну свой доклад с сеанса лечения. Вы увидите, как длится диагностика и как получаются результаты. Затем я кратко объясню, что происходило в процессе сеанса. К сожалению, как вы могли заметить, мой русский далеко от совершенства. Другими словами, я плохо говорю по-русски. Поэтому сегодня, слава Богу, у нас будет переводчик. Переводчик, помоги меня. Okay, so here we have our patient. And to save time with this video, I have spoken with her beforehand about her problem. She says that she has osteoporosis, and she's had it for 10 years. In the last couple months, it has gotten worse, and she's had low back pain, upper back pain, pretty much continually for the last 2 meses, or desde hace cuánto? For the last 2 months. Right now, she says while she's laying down, the pain is only 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10. But if she makes a movement with her waist, ¿puedes hacer el movimiento que dices que ocasiona un poco así? Okay. ¿Se sube a cuánto?
Oh, sí, 6.
So the pain increases to 6 out of 10. So it's 3 out of 10 while she's resting, 6 out of 10 when she tries to move her waist, especialmente el lado derecho o izquierdo?
Derecho.
Okay, so it's especially when she tries to lift her right waist. So I'm going to do a diagnosis with neoclassical style and then the treatment, and we'll see how our patient is. ¿Sí? ¿Aquí molesta? Sí, okay.
Ahí.
Oh.
Ahí, sí,
¿Sí?
ahí,
Mucho.
sí.
Okay.
Ajá.
So her diagnosis would be predominance of ether due to excess in its yin form and deficiency in the its yang form and deficiency in the yin and yang of earth. You may not understand that diagnosis, but it's okay. So let's do the treatment. You'll notice with every needle I place, I'm always checking. I'm always putting the needle in for something very specific. So after every needle, I'm checking to make sure I hit the point. I invented the system, and sometimes I miss points. So I need to have feedback with every point. Better?
No.
¿Sí? And el otro, aquí dijiste.
Ahí.
Okay. ¿Cómo está? Okay.
Good.
Puedes poner su cara ahí, como la. So with every point I'm doing, it's always for a specific reason. I'm never just placing a point, crossing my fingers, hoping that it will do what it needs to do. Every time I place it, I know exactly what I need, and then I will check to make sure it did it. So let's check one more time. Dun-dun. Oh, there's still some pain.
Menos. Okay.
Okay. All right. So that was the treatment. I'm going to place 2 more needles to pull energy out. With this treatment, I do know what the patient has. I know that she has osteoporosis. I know her back, lower back is in pain right now. Normally the cervicals as well, but right now it's not that painful. But the pain was in 3 out of 6 in resting position, 3 out of 10 in resting position, and 6 out of 10 when she tries to move her waist. So I did not treat her back. I did not even take her back into consideration, and I'll explain why later. I'm looking for completely something else. So now we're going to ask our patient how she's feeling. ¿Cómo se siente ahora la espalda?
No, mucho mejor.
¿Sí?
Sí.
So she says much better. So let's try to be a little more specific. De 0 a de 10, ¿en cuánto está ahorita acostada?
No lo siento.
Okay. Y cuando intentes mover la cadera, lo puedes...
Muy poco de este lado, pero es mínimo.
Como si tuvieras que poner un número?
1.
1. Okay. So the pain has decreased 100% as she's in resting position. And when she tries to move her waist, it's gone down to 1 out of 10. It's gone from 6 out of 10 to 1 out of 10. I want to do one more thing to see if we always want 100% in every treatment. That's the goal. Maybe it doesn't always happen, but we try. ¿Puedes intentar una vez más moverla?
Sí, no más.
Okay.
Ya, ajá.
Okay. So now the pain has decreased to 0 out of 10. Again, we're not trying to treat. Our goal is not just her back pain. Our goal is to open everything. And we're going to be explaining that right now. Y si puedes sentarte para ver cómo se sienta. I'm going to ask the patient to sit up to see how she feels. Whoa, así.
Very good.
Okay, she says, очень хорошо. Okay, thank you very much. If you're wondering if her osteoporosis is gone forever, no, of course not. But I would say in 2 to 5 treatments, she could go get another bone density measurement, and we could see how things are going. At least she could live pain-free and without further damage from the osteoporosis. Now, I mentioned that we're going to explain the treatment. We're not going to be explaining it in physiological terms because there's no way to explain it. So how can we explain this even with in scientific manner without going to physiology? We'll need a methodology. Let's look at one of my favorite scientists, Sir Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton made some amazing formulas for gravity. He could understand how to predict the movements of planets. Even today, NASA, the American space program, probably the Russian also, when they send an astronaut into space, when they send a satellite, they still use the formulas of Sir Isaac Newton because they're much more simple than later formulas that came. But Newton himself says, the cause of gravity is what I do not pretend to know. Newton did not know how gravity functioned, but he could predict its effects. And this is very important. Sir Isaac Newton was not trying to discover what it is, and he did not know what it was. But even so, he knew how, with algorithms, with formulas, you could take advantage of it with amazing effects. It wasn't until much later that Einstein comes along, and he did discover, we think, how gravity exists. Sir Isaac Newton believed that there were attractions between 2 bodies. And Einstein says, no, space is curved. Mass will curve space, and that will cause, objects are moving in a straight line, but space is curved. And this is causing that objects to approach one another. So here we have 2 different things. Isaac Newton never knew why gravity worked, but he could explain it incredibly, to such an extent that we still use his formulas. So here, when we're doing our investigation, going into the wall to see these cables, We have to consider how something works versus why something works. Sir Isaac Newton was exploring how something works. How can I predict gravity, how it will act? Whereas Einstein explained not only how something works, he explained why gravity worked. Well, Sir Isaac Newton, I love him, so you'll see a couple of quotes from him, but he had a very beautiful quote. "'Tis much better to do with a little certainty and leave the rest for others that come after, than to explain all things by conjecture without making sure of anything." So today, podemos quitar la diapositiva. Today, instead of trying to explain everything, how acupuncture works, I don't think, honestly, we have the capacity to do that. I don't think science has reached far enough to explain it. Most of the explanations, such as, when you place a needle, there's changes in the limbic system, or there's creates extra serotonin or dopamine. Yes, those are effects which needles can cause in the body, but those are not, they're not explaining specific effects. It's a very general effect. So I think at best, it's a pseudoscience nowadays. We're using science to try to explain acupuncture, where I don't think we're quite there. So I don't want to try to do that. What I'd like to do is a bit more what Sir Isaac Newton was doing. Let's try to understand how it works. So at first, I want to take a look at meridians. The meridians in the body is a very, all of us know about them. But I want to just, the first approach I took when I was creating neoclassical acupuncture, the first discovery I made was how to open and close meridians. And a meridian, I guess we often compare them to a river. So here we see a river. And I would say this is like the meridian. But if we look at the rocks in the river and we draw a line from one rock to another, we're seeing the line between one rock and another. This is analogous to the acupuncture points. These rocks, you can imagine them as acupuncture points. And if we draw a line from one rock to another, great, that's all within the meridian, but it is not necessarily the meridian. The meridian is the whole river, the entire river, not just what links one point to another. Which leads us to an interesting question. Are meridians lines? Or are they bands? What people have done is take the acupuncture points and just like children playing connect the dots, they are drawing lines from one point to another saying this is a meridian. So here we have one of my favorites, gallbladder. It looks like the gallbladder is moving, the energy moves up around the ear, around the head, comes down, blah, and is like a ball bouncing around. I would suggest to you that this is not the flow of the gallbladder meridian. These points are like rocks in a river. If these points belong to gallbladder meridian, we know that gallbladder meridian is here, but it does not flow in a chaotic manner. It's more like a band which comes down through the head. So let's, with the patient, take a look at the meridians very briefly, and I want to show you, just like Sir Isaac Newton had formulas to understand gravity, they are actually algorithms, formulas to understand exactly which meridians will open with which point. So let's see this in action with a patient. So if we're going to take a look at the cables behind the wall, we need an objective way of trying to discover what is there. So the meridians would be our first approach. As I said, meridians are bands. They are not lines connecting one point to another. Here we'll press, let's try her stomach meridian, gallbladder meridian, and bladder meridian. Podemos poner su cara. we're going to put her face so you can see reactions. To see how big stomach, gallbladder, and bladder meridian are, I'm going to open her, let's say, I'm going to open her stomach and bladder meridians, and I will leave her gallbladder meridian closed. When I refer to a closed meridian, I am referring to pain or sensitivity along the meridian. The classics say where energy is stagnant, there will be pain. Where there is pain, there is stagnant energy. So just pressing her leg, we see there is blockage in the stomach meridian, blockage in gallbladder, and blockage in bladder. We're going to open stomach and bladder, so we can see how big is gallbladder. Because if gallbladder is still closed and the meridians on the other side are open, we can see how big it is. So I'm using an algorithm that I often use to open 2 meridians and leave another meridian closed. So let's try stomach. How is it? ¿Cómo está? Let's try bladder. Y watch what happens when I touch gallbladder. It's still painful. So we want to see how big gallbladder is. Look for the painful area. Stomach is open. There should be no pain along. So where does the pain begin? Just when I go over the side, there's pain here. There's pain in middle. There's pain below. Until I reach beneath the leg. So we can see here the gallbladder meridian is this size. So this is just a brief look at how we can begin trying to explore the wires behind the wall. You need an objective manner. So palpation for me is the most important, because instead of reading a pulse to see if a meridian is open or closed, using theory to see if it is open or closed, or using a machine to see if it is open, we can just palpate the meridian. We go directly to the meridian to see if it is open or closed. It's very easy to do. And once we have an objective way of seeing this, we can begin to form formulas, algorithms, some way of predicting which meridians will open with which point. So during this time that I was working with meridians, the guide that I really had the entire time was feedback. Feedback, I cannot stress it enough, is absolutely essential. Once you allow a law or a rule or an algorithm into your system and it is not valid, it could destroy the entire system like a virus. So I was certain and very careful with each step to check, to recheck again and again. And since we could do this, some way of knowing every meridian that each point would open, I imagined there must be another level. And of course, in school, we all learn there's a level of meridian, there's a level of organs. So I began working with the organs of the body and the alarms, the front mu, the back shu that all of us have learned in school. And while working with this, I needed to find a way how to open them. And there's a very simple method. Just to give an example, if we could go to toma larga. I began diagnosing the organs the same way we learned them in school. For example, here, in the first try, we found she has the 2 front lung alarms. So after trying many methods, I found a very simple one. You can use the yuan point on the right side, for example, to open up a front alarm. So at first, I was only working with these organs. And when I tried this, of course, you need feedback. It is essential to have that feedback to test your hypothesis. So the lung alarm has opened. And then the next step would be to try this with a number of alarms, with all the alarms, to see if the same paradigm will function on all alarms. We did this also with back alarms. I'm grateful to one of my mentors in school was named Dr. Eric Stevens, and he taught me a technique for being able to diagnose back alarms with the patient lying on the table. And you can do it in just seconds. So then the next step was to find a way of releasing back alarms as well. At one point, there was not part of a full system, but vamos a la diapositiva. What I began to note, everyone understands that last domino symptomatic level. We've spoken about the meridian level and how meridian level can also get rid of the symptomatic. And then I searched for a way of how, if the organs were actually deeper, they should be able to open up all meridians and get rid of symptoms. This is a short talk, so there's not time to go into a complete explanation of this. It's very long and it would take hours. But finally, the big finding was arriving at the elemental level. And the elemental level is the deepest level that I've found. Maybe there's a deeper level, maybe there's some level which is behind that. I've never seen it. But in the treatment that, this treatment of osteoporosis, the treatment was basically treating on the elemental level. Exactly as organs are found by palpation, meridians are found by palpation, I found a way to diagnose elements via palpation, which again is a very long story. But once this had been structured, I began to see something strange. Once I was able to balance the element in the body, in this last treatment, you may have noticed it was the element of ether, and I'll talk about that briefly. Once that element is balanced, I saw that in a very high percentage of cases, all organs would alarms would disappear, all the meridians would open, and symptoms would disappear. And that's the only reason I've put the element as the first domino. It's not there theoretically, it's not there because the element in theory is so important. It's clinically I've seen when you balance the element, there is a chain reaction which runs to the end. And today we'll be seeing more treatments, I hope, where you can see the element in action. Now, most of you are saying ether is not an element. Okay, it's not an element. You can call the sixth element whatever you would like. In many of the ancient texts, there's heaven and earth as one of the great first beginnings of philosophy. And then we have earth divided into the four directions. And with earth, if you still include earth, it's 5 elements. But people consider fire as having 2 elements. So when I was doing my investigations, in this system, we do not use the elements as phases. I tried it and I just could never find a way to make it work like 90 to 100% of the cases. But what I did find, and a lot of this came from Taoist texts, 11th century, one called Understanding Reality. This balance occurs between metal and wood. There's a balance between water and fire, and there's a balance between heaven and earth. Now, I could never balance earth because there was nothing to balance it with. Until it occurred to me, in school, I was always a bit confused about the fire as having 4 organs. Of course, there's heart and small intestine, but then there's also pericardium and triple warmer. In the Nanqing, they say those 4 organs belong to fire. When I tried to balance earth with pericardium, triple warmer, it works immediately. And so in this system, we say there's 6 elements. I call it ether instead of ministerial fire, just to make sure it's separated as its own element. But that's a very long story. I talk about it for several hundred pages in my book. There's a lot I have to back that up. But this is really what you'll be seeing in the rest of the treatments is this, si podemos poner otra vez is what you'll be seeing is this domino effect. It's, if I treat at meridian level, yes, maybe it will open up the symptom. But if I treat the symptom, it won't open the meridian. But if I treat the element, there will be this chain reaction which arrives all the way down. There's one level we haven't spoken about, the obstacles. There were some treatments where I balanced the element, but the symptoms didn't go away. So the implication is all the dominoes haven't fallen. There must be something stopping that chain reaction. And so when I kept palpating and searching in the body, what I found were many times extraordinary meridians were closed. And extraordinary meridians, I diagnose them the same way as any normal meridian, just palpating to see if they're open or closed. It's that simple. It's not that complicated. And so this has really been the only changes in the last years are finding more of these obstacles which are affecting the treatment. But let's continue with some more treatment. So we can, theory is theory, but let's see it in action. So with our next case, I would like to treat his problem just symptomatically and not treat the organs, not treat the meridians, not treat anything else, just his symptoms. And then we're going to do something with that. So first, our next patient has low back pain. It's in the center of his back. To save time, so we don't have to translate from Spanish to English to Russian, to save time, I've asked him, and he says the pain level, it's not painful, no duele cuando estás acostado, no? Okay, when he's laying down, there's no pain, it's 0 out of 10. But when he bends his back like this, the pain shoots up to 6 out of 10 on the pain scale. So what I'm going to do is just treat his symptoms first. I am going to do a diagnosis first, but I'm not going to use it. And later I'll explain why. So, okay. Oh, ay, por Dios. Okay. Okay. Take note now. Whenever I'm doing this, there is you notice intense pain on the sides. I'm not going to treat that. I'm only going to treat symptomatic treatment for his low back. Nothing more. Notice also when I press the legs, there is intense pain. ¿Puedes poner la imagen de su cara ahí? We're going to put the video. He is wearing a mask. COVID is kind of bad right now. But I want you to see when I press, just in general, the meridians on his legs, there is intense pain. And I want you also to take that into consideration. But I'm not going to treat that, just going to treat his symptoms. I can't see the point, but I'm hoping I hit it. Okay. Espero que no lo metí en tu labio, ¿eh? Ok. Jesús, ¿puedes sentarte a ver ahora, a probar tu espalda? A ver cómo está. Cuidado cuando te estén. Ok. Si puede ser el mismo movimiento, así. Ok. 0 a 10, ¿en cuánto está? 1. So he says the pain has gone down from ¿cuánto dijiste antes? 6, no? 6. The pain was in 6 and it's been reduced to 1. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to erase this point. First, I want to see, we did get rid of his symptoms, but did we really have an effect on his entire body? So we're going to ask Jesus to lay down again. Si puedes acostarte. So remember, when I was palpating Jesus initially, we noticed there were painful meridians. There were something here, meridians closed on his side. So I want to take a look at that and see if there's been any change there. Puedes poner la cara para que puedan ver. So we see there's still intense pain. Oh. I feel it like a wall here. And the meridians, let's see. Yeah. So the meridians I'm not looking at particular meridians, just in general, he has many meridians closed on his leg. So we have done something for his pain. for his symptoms, but it doesn't look like we've really affected him on a deeper level. So what I'm going to do is we're going to erase our treatment. I'm going to do something to make it as if he never had had a treatment. So we can try something. Okay, Jesus, ¿puedes ponerte a pie otra vez? He doesn't know what's going to happen. I don't think he speaks English. Do you speak English? No. No, okay. See, okay. I'm sorry. ¿Seguro? ¿Duele? Okay, okay. Boquita arriba. De 0 a 10, ¿en cuánto duele? 4. So the pain has returned to 4 out of 10. The pain, sorry. I'm only doing this for demonstration. Only for demonstration. I don't do this in the clinic. Okay, boquita arriba. So the pain has returned. Now it's 4 out of 10. So now, the first time we treated just his symptoms, and we saw it did not affect these yang wei mai, the 2 meridians running through here. We saw it did not affect the meridians which were closed before. Now, this time, I'm going to do a treatment, but I'm not going to take in consideration his back pain. I'm going to forget about his back pain and just treat from a deeper level. So let's see if we treat from this deeper level, if we'll be able to change the obstacles, if we'll be able to open the meridians, all organs, if everything will open. Because remember, our goal is not just to get rid of the pain. Our goal is not just to even to just cure the problem. Our goal is for his entire body to be working optimally. So, now I'm going to do a full diagnosis. We'll do the same, we'll do a treatment, which will be very different. Our orientation now is not towards the symptom. Our orientation is only towards the energetic imbalance. Oh, okay. Here, okay. Uy. Tiene cosas. Okay. Muy bien. So, if you've read my book, I'll go ahead and tell you, you may notice the diagnosis here is late summer, and he also has his yang wei is closed. Yang wei mai is closed on both sides. I think there's something else too I may have forgotten. Okay, so let's treat this first. Yeah. ¿Still have a falta or no?
No.
Okay. So notice, when I'm trying to get, when I'm trying to open both sides of yang wei mai, I put the needle in, then I check, I make sure they opened, and now I'm going to go to the next. He also had late summer. ¿Molesta aquí? No, ya no, ¿seguro? Ya noto un poquito, okay. So late summer, actually a pseudo element, which he had, late summer has reduced some, but it's still painful. ¿Cómo está ahora? Okay. So, with what I've done here, I've treated what I call a pseudo element. It's a very long story. This is a short talk. But that is, we could say, the first domino. I've treated the first domino. I've also treated what I call an obstacle which he had, which should now allow his entire body to open up. And when I say his entire body, I'm referring to all of the meridians should now be open. We'll check that now. His symptoms, of course, should have disappeared. We'll check that too. And any other pains which he has should, even though we don't know about them, they should disappear too. So let's try it. First, let's see if this treatment on the elemental level has affected the meridian level. First, let me put in what I call the sweeper. I do this after every treatment to pull out any errant energy. When you open up the entire body, when you open up all of the meridians, sometimes there's energy which doesn't really know where to assimilate. And that energy can go to the head and cause headaches, insomnia, anxiety, different things. If you're only if you're only getting rid of someone's pain or you're using recipes, it's not necessary. I only use it when you open everything. So let's take a look at his meridians now. So we can see on the meridian level, everything is opened. We've already seen on his extraordinary meridians have opened. Okay, so now the real test. Let's see. We've seen these dominoes are falling. We treat it on the root level. It's a pseudo element in this case, but the dominoes have fallen and it's opened up the meridians, and let's see if it reaches the symptomatic level. Ok, Jesús, si puedes sentarte a probar la espalda, si puedes poner por acá, hace el mismo movimiento. Ok, queda un poquito. Okay, he says there's like 0.1 left in pain. So I'm just going to do something to pull out any extra energy that may have been sitting in the back. It's just a 1-second needle. You've seen whenever I use the sweeper or I use a point which is just to pull out errant energy, I don't even leave the needle in. ¿Puedes probar otra vez? Ah, ahí está. Okay. So now Jesus says the pain has been reduced. Ya puedes cambiar de cámara. Now Jesus says the pain has reduced to 0. So the big difference here, when I'm using a recipe, when I'm using a point just to treat, gracias Jesus, muchas gracias. When I'm using a point, ¿estás bien? Sí. Okay. I thought he was dizzy for a second. Normally treatments are not this short. Normally I let the patient sit, but since this is a short talk, for time's sake, the treatments are very short. But it's very important to note here, when I did this treatment, on the symptomatic level, yes, the symptoms disappeared, and wonderful. The patient is coming for that. They're coming because they need alleviation of their symptoms. But we did notice that treatment that I did on the symptomatic level did not touch the meridians. It didn't open meridians which were closed. It didn't open extraordinary meridians that were closed. And now when we go to a deeper level, we see that everything opens, symptoms included. Now that we have seen the order of the dominoes, how one level can affect the other level, I'd like to do one more treatment so that we can really see this, now that we understand it, so that we can see it in action. The case we have, I hope it works, is a case of a torn muscle somewhere in her left arm. We'll see. She didn't bring the study, the ultrasonido, so we could see it. But let's try this, and we're going to I'll be testing her on the level of meridians, element, the obstacles, if she has any, and we'll be able to see how treating one level can affect the others. So, toma larga. So, here we have our patient. As I mentioned, it's left arm. She has decreased mobility. Let's just try a different ranges of motion. ¿Puedes levantar tu brazo así? Okay. Aquí.
Está bien.
Okay, and in this movement, there's no problem. In this direction, ¿puedes hacer en esta dirección hacia arriba?
Aquí, así siento como que...
Okay, so at about 90 degrees, the pain begins. ¿Puedes más? Oh, so she has a very limited range of motion. At about 90 degrees, the pain begins, and she can only bring her arm to about 120 degrees. So arriving here, what is the pain level?
I would say like 8.
Oh, she speaks English. So 8, okay. So when you arrive here, the pain level is 8.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I'm going to do a full diagnosis, and I'll mention if I see meridians or what element or obstacles. Oh, wait, okay. Okay. No, just here. Okay. Belly button here? Okay. Oh, okay. So, here is a case of predominance of ether due to a deficiency in the yin form of earth. That's just the name of the diagnosis. She also has the lower right chongmai is closed, one of the extraordinary meridians, lower right quadrant. And let's see, meridians. Okay. So she has a lot of, not important exactly which, but it's spleen, liver, and kidney are closed. So we have different levels. The most superficial, she has several meridians closed in her right leg. In terms of organs, at least she has front spleen alarm, and she has the lower right quadrant of chongmai. You don't need to understand this exactly, but I'm just showing different levels of treatment. So I'm going to treat her on the elemental level, and let's see which levels this affects. When the dominoes begin to fall, let's see if it affects level of the obstacle, level of meridian, and the symptomatic level. Okay. How's it now?
Doesn't hurt.
Okay. How about here now?
Wow.
Okay. Puedes poner cara para que puedan ver. So, we've treated her on the elemental level. I've only treated the first domino, just the first domino. So, I'm going to put in my sweeper. So we see it first. Fine? Okay. Okay, so we've all that I know is I have treated the first domino. I don't know if it has affected all of the other levels. It's possible. If the obstacle didn't fall, it will not reach the meridian. Let's see. Is the obstacle? See. Chongmai, okay. And the meridians? So we can see, we threw the first domino, the element. It has taken away an obstacle, an extraordinary meridian. It's also opened the meridians in the legs. Now for the big test. Let's see how her shoulder is doing. ¿Puedes mismo lo que estabas haciendo aquí? There's still limited range of motion.
But it doesn't hurt. It's like it slides well.
So she says the pain is gone, but there's still a limited range of motion. So let's give it a few seconds to see. Because I do not want to treat on the superficial level, on the symptomatic level, unless it's necessary. So let's give her one more minute. Sometimes with this type of problem, with many, it needs time for the muscle to disinflame or for various changes to occur on the physiological level. Can you try again? Oh, there it goes. Okay.
It still hurts a little bit.
So she's saying she now has a much better range of motion, but there is pain when she arrives at this level. So we're not getting this 100%, but the pain began at 90 degrees. Now it's beginning at about 140 degrees. Can you try one more time? Okay. Yeah. So it took maybe a minute for the change to occur.
Wow.
But so just to recap, I think we'll use our diagram to be able to recap this treatment. The intention of this report today has been to give you an empirical way of looking at the different levels of treatment that there are, and also an empirical way of putting them in an order so that we can take advantage of this domino effect. The first treatment was a general treatment with our patient with osteoporosis. The second treatment, I showed you that there is an objective way to diagnose and to treat the meridians. In the next treatment, I showed whenever you treat on a symptomatic level, this last domino, it will not affect the meridians. But when I erased the treatment and then we treated on an elemental level, it was able to arrive at all the dominoes. So here we have an objective way of seeing how these levels are ordered in the energetic system. It's not just theory, it's really clinically, empirically verifiable. And in this last treatment, we saw, we did a diagnosis on the meridian level, the symptomatic level. We saw there was also an obstacle and also an element present. So when I treated on the elemental level, we were able to verify the obstacles disappeared, which was Chong Mai, she had closed, lower right. Also, the organ we found, the alarm of spleen we found, was deactivated. The meridians in the right leg were opened and the symptoms disappeared. This is a quick way we can verify of all of these levels of treatment. The main theme throughout the entirety of my investigations has been feedback. If you really want to be able to form a schematic, a paradigm, it's essential to have an objective way of being able to diagnose the meridians, to diagnose the organs, to diagnose what I call the obstacles, which could be the extraordinary meridians, and to diagnose an element. Once you have an objective way of knowing, for example, the meridian is open or closed, and you discover a way to open or close that meridian, then you have at least an opportunity of being able to form a functioning paradigm. To be able to have an empirical model, it's necessary to have that feedback. And it is that feedback that I have used on every level of these new discoveries. The map is still being drawn. There's still more to learn. I think investigations are not over until one can cure 100% of their patients with one needle and one treatment. This map is just a map. It's something which guides me and guides others in the treatments, and all based on empirical results. So again, the map is just a map. The map can change. It can continue changing, just like Isaac Newton had his model of gravity. But the map behind that, the explanation, can change. But his formulas are still being used, as I mentioned, even today. And I just want to close with a quote by Isaac Newton, which is one of my favorites. We could put the... and it says, "To myself, I am only a child playing on the beach, while vast oceans of truth lie undiscovered before me." That idea of curiosity and of sense of wonder is essential to maintaining one's happiness and passion in acupuncture. I thank you all for this opportunity to present today. I send you all greetings from Mexico. Y spasiba za vнимание.